So I'm going to open the meeting with a salute to the flag, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we get started this evening, we're going to take a brief recess for the swearing in of our newly elected board member. So this will just take a moment. Thank you.
Raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I, and your name, please,
Lindsay Lusher Shute,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of, and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of town
board member,
councilperson
town council, right, according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Okay, very good. And you want to sign here, please?
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
That was it?
Lindsay, you're on your own.
Okay, we will open the meeting. First and foremost, I'd like to welcome our newest board member, Lindsay Lusher Shute. Thank you for joining us. I'm excited to have you join the board. And on the same note, I'd like to thank our previous board member, Evan Hempel, for 8 years of service that worked with us and served this town very well. And we certainly appreciate all the time and effort you put into working with us, Evan. So thank you. I'm going to move this around just a little bit since we ran out of seats for our guests. I'm going to let them jump in and do their presentation first. We have Nicole and Shannon here from New York Energy Solutions to go through a presentation on the power line upgrades. And just want to have you guys take over. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Congratulations. Glad we could be here on such a momentous occasion. Happy New Year to everyone. New York Transco, who I work for, I'm Shannon Baxavanis, wanted to provide an update to folks since we filed our Article 7 application. And so we'll walk through some details that we've already presented to the board and that may be familiar to folks in the town. But we're happy to answer any questions at the end and come back at any time that you deem necessary to continue to provide updates. So kind of starting from the beginning, the project that we are doing was selected by New York ISO back in April of this year. We are one of 2 projects that was selected for the purposes of upgrading the transmission system to relieve congestion on the system and allow for the flow of clean energy. So you see a blue line. That's called Segment A. That's a project being done by LS Power and NYPA. That project goes from Marcy to New Scotland, just right outside of Albany, and then there's Segment B, which is the green line that runs north to south, and that's New York Transco's project called the New York Energy Solution. That project runs from Schodack through 11 communities down to Pleasant Valley. Again, the purpose of both projects is to relieve congestion on the transmission system through an upgrade for the purposes of moving clean power to customers. So the process that both LS Power and New York Transco were in was a competitive process. It has actually a very lengthy history going back to 2014, but it was competitive, and our projects were selected as the most cost-efficient and effective ways to upgrade the system. The project that New York Transco is doing, the New York Energy Solution, again goes from Schodack through 11 communities down into Pleasant Valley, staying entirely within existing utility rights-of-way, and will upgrade 80-year-old transmission structures that are in the right-of-way today with new modern technology. We are reusing the corridor, which was a big request by stakeholders to stay within that corridor through the many years of conversations we've had about the project. And we will stay within the corridor entirely for the upgrade and also on utility-owned property. It's about 55 miles of transmission upgrade, and at the end of the day, with the upgrade that we'll do, and I'll show you some pictures in a second, we'll be able to permanently eliminate about 230 transmission structures from the right-of-way. So it'll be a big cleanup and streamlining to the right-of-way. The timeline that we're on is that we were selected in April. We started our stakeholder outreach post-selection. We submitted our Article 7 application to the New York Public Service Commission, which kicked off our permitting process. That was done in October of 2019. We anticipate that permitting process to take us into mid-2021, at which point we would have approvals in hand to begin construction of the project. We would complete construction of the transmission upgrade by the end of 2023 and put the project in service. So here you can see some visual simulations of what the project would look like when we're done. We're breaking it down into two segments of work, starting in Skodak, where we'd be building a new switching station on utility-owned property. And then from Skodak, for about 22 miles, we do this part of the transmission upgrade where we have a single lattice style structure in the right-of-way. We would be removing that single lattice structure, which currently holds two 115 kilovolt lines, and we would be building a new monopole structure, and the new monopole structure would hold a 115 kilovolt line, and it would hold a 345 kilovolt line. That would take us, this configuration of the single monopole would be for the entire route of the project, but as we get into the second 32 miles of the project, it has a bit of a different configuration the right-of-way today. The new monopole structures that we'd be building are about 10 feet on average taller than the existing lattice structures that are out there today. So on average, we have 80-foot structures in the right-of-way today. The new ones would be on average about 90 feet. Once we hit Claverick, we would be rebuilding an existing switching station on utility-owned property. And then from that switching station, we would continue the transmission line upgrade for 32 miles into Pleasant Valley. And of course, Claremont is right here in this section of the right-of-way. So as you can see, if you were to go out and check out here in Claremont what the right-of-way looks like, you'd see two lattice-style structures. Those two lattice-style structures hold a total of four 115 kilovolt lines. We would be removing those two lattice-style structures and all four 115 kilovolt lines. We would be building a new monopole structure, and on that new monopole structure would be a 115 kilovolt line and a single 345 kilovolt line. So here in Claremont, you'd see four less structures in the right-of-way once the project was done. When we get down into Pleasant Valley, we will terminate at the existing Pleasant Valley substation. We will do some upgrades at that existing station. And also down in Pleasant Valley, we will be building a capacitor bank station. The capacitor bank station is about 0.8 of a mile northwest of the Pleasant Valley substation. That capacitor bank station holds equipment that allows for control of the power flow on the line so that in times of high demand, like in the summertime when people are using air conditioners, you can increase the capacity of the line with this type of technology. So the capacitor bank station will be built on utility-owned property south of Van Wagner Road, and we will be doing some reconfiguration to two existing lines that are in that right-of-way today, and building another line that would stretch from the capacitor bank station down into the Pleasant Valley substation. We will also be reconfiguring one set of structures along the Blue Store's tap line. That tap line is in Livingston and connects into the local Blue Store substation. We'll be replacing a single H-frame structure with a new H-frame structure that's about 15 feet higher, and it will hold 115 kilovolt lines, which is the voltage that's in the right-of-way today. All of those work staying within existing utility rights-of-way. So here in Claremont, you have about 0.7 of a mile of work that needs to be done. There are 8 structures in the right-of-way today, and those 2 sets of lattice-style structures will be removing all 8 and replacing them with single monopole structures, where there'll be a total of 4 single monopole structures here in Claremont. So this is just a quick view of all of the towns that we'll be passing through and the various work that we'll be doing. We do have this information available up on our website, but it's sometimes nice to see in a bird's eye view all of the effort. What you will notice here in the last column where it says structure difference, you start to see a significant amount of reductions in the right-of-way of structure removals, permanent removals. That's where we get into the 230 less structures in the right-of-way. So I mentioned that we submitted our Article 7 application to the Department of Public Service. This is a big permitting effort for projects of this type. It's a requirement by New York State to undergo the Article 7 permitting process. It's sort of a one-stop shop where all of the state agencies participate in the Article 7 process. And it's a lengthy permitting effort that takes, we estimate, about 18 months to complete. So we submitted the application on the 18th of October of this past year, and it's a voluminous document, about 4,300 pages of reports, technical studies, and information mapping on the project. So what we did is we went back and we looked at all of the comments and feedback that we were getting from various stakeholders in the outreach that we were doing, and we pulled it down into about a 4-page summary of some of the key issues that folks were interested in locally. Some of these are represented here. So environmental impact, which is in Exhibit 4 of the Article 7 application, and the Article 7 application is available online. There were lots of questions that we got about vegetation management that we would be doing, removals, any changes to the aesthetic character or topography of the area, impact on soils. And overall, the total package of the environmental impact is that it's temporary during construction. We're already in an existing utility corridor, and we'll be remaining within that corridor. There will be environmental management and mitigation techniques that will be developed during the next phase of our permitting, which is called the EM&CP, Environmental Management and Construction Plan, that looks in detail at where each of the structures get placed and the types of mitigation and management that we need to put in place to ensure that there's no permanent damage to the area. Vegetation removal, we have identified areas where we will have vegetation removal as a result of the project for the purposes of construction or the safe operation of the line. That's something that's all available with those highlighted areas that we anticipate for vegetation removals. That's available in our application, and it will be available up on our website as well. We're working on that right now. Operational noise is often a question we get. We have to meet standards for operational noise of the line, and it will be below the existing state guidelines. EMF is often a question that we get from folks. The electric and magnetic field, we had to do a study as part of the Article 7 application to look at this, to determine what the levels are at the edge of right-of-way. And there is a state requirement for meeting certain levels at the edge of right-of-way, and the project will meet the state guidelines. And actually there are 2 segments of the right-of-way today that are out of compliance with the state guidelines. We'll bring it back into compliance with the project. We do have an EMF fact sheet with more details on our website available for folks to look at. Effect on communications. People ask, when you're doing the construction of the project or once it's in service, will there be an impact to my internet, telephone, cell phone, cable TV? There's no impact to communications at all during the construction or operation of the line. Effect on transportation, also a question we get, the impact on local roads. We do put together traffic management plans for the project, and that will come in the environmental management and construction planning effort that's part of the Article 7 process. We have about 68 road crossings for the project, so that's something that we'd be working with the local municipalities as well as the counties to ensure that we've taken the proper precautions for those local road crossings, and we'll be coordinating with all of the appropriate state, local, and county entities as we move forward on this. Alternatives, folks often ask that. Were there other alternatives that were examined instead of doing this project? And New York ISO looked at several projects. It was a competitive process, and ultimately we were selected because it was the most cost-efficient and effective way to relieve the congestion on the system and allow for the flow of clean energy. We did look at undergrounding the project, and ultimately New York ISO found that to be cost prohibitive. The application's available through our website. It's also available in local libraries. Each of the state legislators that represent the areas have the application, and the town should have received information on this as well. Transmission line drawings, people often wonder specifically what does the structure look like a little bit more up close. So we pulled out what the basic design of the structure is with the various terminology to each piece of it. The top arm on the structure is about 38.5 feet wide. The longer arm and the bottom is about 51 feet wide. So that's often a question we get. And again, it's about a 90-foot average height across the project. There is an exhibit within the application, Exhibit 2, that shows mapping through each town of where we anticipate the new structures to be located. It also includes the location of anticipated vegetation removal. And as I mentioned, this is something that we're getting up on our website so that folks can click on Claremont and go to the town and see exactly what's happening within the town and where the structures are planned to be located. But generally speaking, the new structures will be close to the existing structures, they're looking at the center line in between those two existing structures. Today would basically be the placement of the new structure. So for the construction process, this is oversimplified, but what we do once we have our approvals in hand, which we anticipate having all permitting and approvals in hand by mid-2021, we would begin first with site preparation, which includes vegetation removal and management. You would put down matting to protect sensitive areas. Those are those big wooden pieces that you see kind of pieced together. They build basically a road with those. We put in work pads and we set up our marshalling yards that would have equipment and maybe places for the local crews to kind of get together in the morning before the day's work. We'd then set up environmental controls based on the environmental management and construction plan that ultimately gets approved by the Department of Public Service. This includes things like hay bales, concrete washouts, silt fences, whatever the needs are based on identification through that process, basically to limit impact. Then we'd start rebuilding the line. We'd come in, we would drill foundations, and we've had questions, will there be blasting? No, there's no blasting. We drill the foundations for each of these structures, drill the foundations, pour the concrete. The structures come in pieces, so it's not one big 90-foot thing coming down the road. They come in pieces, they're assembled on site, they're erected, they're put in, concrete's poured, oversimplified, wires are strung, and ultimately that's how the construction process goes. Once the structures are up, we take down the old structures. So it's a phased process, and a lot of the construction planning and procedures are done based on outages. There are no outages or interruptions to local service. It's more on the back end side to make sure that power can be wheeled so that there are no interruptions during the time of construction. Once we're done, we go back and we restore the areas. So throughout the right-of-way, planting low grasses, low shrubbery, kind of how you see it today, we would come back and restore the right-of-way and work with the municipalities to make sure that any road concerns or other restoration needs that occurred based on construction are taken care of. This Article 7 process I mentioned is quite a lengthy process. We just kicked it off this past fall. We're still waiting for our application to be deemed complete, which we hope to occur early this year. That will then lead to the Public Service Commission issuing and holding a public statement hearing, which I encourage folks that are interested to participate in that and the town to participate in that. It's run by the Public Service Commission. They determine the locations. We just help to provide information. So we'll be certain to push that out once we have information from the Public Service Commission when those are being held. There's a lot of areas for public participation throughout that lengthy process, and we do encourage you to take advantage of those opportunities. Right now there's what's called the DMM's website, which is where the Public Service Commission houses the application. There's opportunities to review the application, but also to comment on there. They're accepting public comments as long as the docket is open. You can also subscribe to be on the service list, which provides you a way to get information directly to you. And you can file to become a party for the proceeding, which there's a whole host of information on the website for how to do that. As the process continues to move along, there are additional ways to participate, but the ones I mentioned are sort of the core ones at this point where the public can really engage in their process. So for New York Transco, we're going to continue doing meetings like these as our permitting evolves and we get more updates. We'll come back and share those with you. We'll continue with our landowner and local stakeholder outreach. We are hosting a forum in February, on the 4th of February at Cornell Cooperative Extension. It's focused on agricultural topics, so we have several farmers in and along the right-of-way that we want to make sure that we're coordinating with as the project proceeds, not only through our survey work, but also through construction. So welcome all folks to come to that, and please tell your friends about the activities. It's up on our website right now. We're doing geotechnical survey work, which helps inform the engineering and design of the project. That's ongoing, and that'll conclude in early spring. Let's all work within the right-of-way. And we'll be continuing our other permitting with the other state and federal agencies and local communities as we advance it. And we'll look forward to the public statement hearing, hopefully in the spring or summer. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
One question comes to mind. What do we do with complaints or questions that we can't answer since, our building inspector's not doing any permitting on this? Who do we send the complaints to? Because I won't be able to answer them. Because,
Sure.
just off the top of my head, I'm thinking the height of the towers could be an issue. Because for some people it may not affect them, but 10 feet extra might cause a problem. Who do we address the problem questions to? So anybody that has those questions, they themselves could go onto the website, the DMM site, which you can get directly from our site. If you go to ny-es.com, it's right at the top, there's a banner. You can click on that, it takes you directly to our application on their website. There's a space for comments on there, so folks can post comments on there as they'd like. If there's a specific question or concern that we can address or provide more information, they can reach out directly to me and Nicole. We have email address and a toll-free number that folks can ring us at. So either way would be those. Right now, those are the two best ways. But as things evolve, the Public Service Commission will have more opportunities for additional comments to be submitted into the docket.
Okay. Luckily, it's only affecting a very small part of our town, so if there's any complaints, it should be minimal, but again, I'd like to at least have the answer to when to send it to.
Absolutely. And if you ever have a question, give us a ring. We're happy to help.
Okay.
You have a card with that information on?
Yeah, and it's on everything that we have. It's right here too. And it's on all of the paperwork.
We can actually put that on the website.
Yep.
One quick question I have. You've mentioned coordinating with state and county and local highway. Have you been in contact with our highway department here? Yeah.
We have met, we're the building inspector.
Yeah, back in the
Summer, yeah, it was the summer. It's been a little bit since we've had a meeting with the local folks. But right now, we don't have plans to share in terms of the transportation plans. That's something that we haven't yet fully pulled together. That's a next phase. We'd be sitting down with the highway folks on that.
That'll come up during the environmental management and construction plan development, which will kick off this year.
Yeah.
We have to consult with the local highway personnel. So.
Correct. And there are 68 road crossings that the right-of-way has that we would be confronted with. A lot of the transportation will be done up and down the right-of-way. That's the anticipation right now. But we do have access points that are established access points that are included in our application that are, right now, they're preliminary.
You indicated that the operational noise would be below the state guidelines. Do you have any reference to what the current noise level is and what the future completion after the project is done, what that noise level will be? What
Do
the
you have
difference is?
that on?
it wouldn't be in it would be in Exhibit 4, but I
Yeah, we can pull that information. I don't know off the top of my head, but we can pull those specific data points for you. They did do a study for our noise.
I
Yes.
assume it's going to be more, but I'm not sure how much more.
We can find out.
Yeah.
Okay. And one more question is, as far as the project completion, all your restoration, removal of the old towers, do you have a time frame when that has to be done? Is there a cutoff point, it must be done by this time?
No, and the details surrounding the restoration, that really gets fleshed out in that environmental management and construction plan, which is part of the Article 7 process. So as Nicole was stating, that's the next step that we get into for the permitting requirements. So you do this first piece of the application, which is all of this technical studies, all of the engineering drawings at a 30% design and engineering, and then we go back after we've had time to review it with the different state agencies that are part of the Article 7 process and consulting with the towns as well. And we go back and we develop some of the more detailed plans that ultimately we would implement during construction and for restoration.
So there's nothing in place currently? Yeah,
There might be
concern is-
high-level information, but not probably the details that you're interested
Right.
in.
My concern would be if you came in with all the new equipment, put the new towers up,
Mm-hmm.
and then for some reason, everything got laggy and the cleanup didn't really happen quickly enough.
Understood.
So I would like to know that if possible.
And
Yeah.
I will note that during construction, DPS, the Department of Public Service, will have a staff member on the project at all times in the field. So there's someone overseeing
Okay,
us
Yeah.
as we construct.
okay. Thank you.
Including agricultural monitors to make sure that there are no adverse impacts to agricultural lands.
Thank you.
Okay. I know it's early on in the process, and there's going to be several more meetings, but I know
Right.
as questions come up, we'd like to at least try to get some answers. I don't know, are you prepared to take any questions if anybody has any?
I'm happy to, yes.
I'll open up to the floor if
Absolutely.
anybody has any quick questions, but I know it is early on for this. If anybody has any questions?
Is this a state project or private? Who funds it?
So it's funded by ratepayers. So everybody in the state of New York, whether you live here or you live in Buffalo, everybody pays for a piece of this as part of their transmission piece of the bill. It's something that's spread across the entire state.
So they aggregated it.
Correct.
But
It's
then the
based
state
on
contracts-
formulas.
The state is contracting with you guys.
Correct. We were selected by New York ISO to do this project, and ultimately we have to now go through the state permitting process to be selected in terms of constructing it. So we did step 1, and now we're in step 2 before we can actually build the project. And there's also federal approvals that need to take place as part of our permitting as well.
Any questions? Sarah?
Excuse me. Some of us come from worlds where we have underground electric, and we never have to deal with when there are ice storms and stuff like that. Those are prohibitive costs when we always have to fix it, and we lose our livelihood when the internet goes, which somehow is attached to that too. What were the variables or the data points of reference that underground electricity is so much more expensive than building, towers that I think is 1950s on steroids? And where can we find that analysis, and why is it never really considered in this country?
So there's quite a bit of analysis that we could provide to you. If you would give us your contact information, we'd be happy to pull out the information that the New York ISO used as their considerations. I mean, off the cuff, sort of generally speaking, undergrounding transmission is 10 times, if not more, the cost of overhead. So usually it's partly a cost-driven factor, which is the cost-prohibitive side of things. Maintenance is a different calculation, but you have to identify faults if they're underground, and then if it, again, this is all hypothetical. So if there was a fault and it took a while to identify, then you have to go underground to get it. That doesn't also take into account some of the construction factors of doing underground construction. You have to put vaults in the ground. The vaults are generally about the size of a school bus. And so you'd have to do them every so often to have manholes to get down in to fix cables if there was a fault. So it's a pretty involved construction process too. It is used in other parts of the country, and certainly in New York there's underground transmission and underground electric in general. But for this project and for the purposes of what it was trying to achieve, the overhead solution was the most cost-effective and most efficient solution. Again, staying all within an existing right-of-way.
So, Troy, New York, it's underground, right? They put it there 100 or so years ago. So is that something people look, I'm sorry, I don't want to
No,
but
it's fine.
is something people look at? Because, they did it. I mean, they had less technology than we have.
That's probably
And-
distribution in Troy. That's
Yeah.
probably their distribution network, which would be what you have running down your streets to feed homes and businesses. That's different than transmission.
Yeah,
But
on the, this is for bulk power for New York, so this is all the power that those distribution lines, drop
Yeah.
on. You mentioned the internet going down, being helped with
Magic.
underground. Internet lines are not put on these
I
types
know,
of
but
structures.
sometimes they're run across the lines, not on those high-powered ones, but
Yeah,
everything is above ground, and it seems annoying. Anyway, it's just
Okay.
my little pet
I have a
peeve.
question. Where you have National Grid for alcohol, does all of this mean that whatever company is providing our power, the rather consistent outages that we're experiencing, is that going to be alleviated by this? Or is that the National Grid problem?
that would be your distribution company. That would be National Grid, because when you're experiencing an outage, it's most likely on the distribution system and not on the transmission system. So it'd be a local substation, a local transformer, local lines that got knocked down from a storm or something like that. It's not the transmission system. So if you're experiencing local outages, that would be more
So
your provider.
they're feeding off of what you're doing?
Correct, so that this is bulk power. So this power that's fed down here comes from the generators. So this could be, in the case of our project, it will be solar and wind that are moved down these lines, high power, 2,000 megawatts of power. You're talking basically like a power plant, amount of power coming down these lines. Then it goes off onto tap lines and hits local distribution substations. The power gets stepped down, and then that ultimately goes on distribution lines that you see on the street, and that feeds homes and businesses to power them.
So all these other companies like National Grid are taking over at a local?
It could be NYSEG, it could be National Grid, it could be Con Edison if you're in New York City.
So these outages shouldn't be happening through what you're doing?
No, not from what we're doing.
Okay.
Different system, different part of the system. Ultimately, it's all linked, but this part of the system is not being affected by those outages.
I was hoping we didn't have to compare National Grid anymore.
Sorry.
Yes.
Unfortunately, this new lines, this new system really won't benefit us or change our power or our, we're not gonna recognize this. The main purpose, and we all know this, the main purpose is to ship more power down to the city. And
Well-
that's what this is designed for.
I would respectfully disagree because there are tap lines off of this. This is an AC line, alternating current line. And so it's not point to point. That's a DC line. That's like an extension cord. This is not. This has tap lines. I've mentioned the Blue Stores tap. We're upgrading that line. That feeds a local distribution station, which then feeds towns that tap off of that station. And there's many, Pleasant Valley substations, same thing. There's many along the way. So it does benefit local residents and businesses here.
The substation we've had problems with is not being addressed. That's National Grid's problem. You're addressing the lines to it, but that doesn't
We are.
necessarily help the problem with the substation that's been occurring. So
Distribution is different than transmission, yes.
this will have very little effect for the towns it runs through. But that's fine. I agree to disagree with you.
Well, I did have a question. You said in here that it facilitates renewables. Can
It does.
you explain that?
Yes, so in upstate New York, there's been, over the last several years, a good amount of development that's occurred with both solar and wind. And because of the congestion on the system, that solar and wind gets curtailed. It gets shut off because there's no way to get it to customers. It's basically all blocked up. This will relieve that blockage in order for the power to flow to customers so that curtailing is not occurring. It will also free up the opportunity for more development, which there's plenty planned in upstate New York for more development to occur and ultimately to meet the state's very ambitious and noble goals that they have to combat climate change.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for coming in this
Thanks for
evening.
having
I know
us.
we'll hear from you, I'm sure, shortly to have set another meeting in the months to come.
Yes.
But we appreciate you coming in and running through this with us again and keep us updated. And I will certainly, if we have any complaints, pass them along and let you know.
Thank you.
Do you have any extra copies of this? I'll let you get one for
We
the-
don't, but we could email them to you or drop off some. Do you have?
I have one extra.
We have one extra.
Of the presentation.
I'd like to pass one on to the highway department.
Yeah, sure.
I have a few extra copies of the 4-page summary I'll leave in the back.
All right. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Well, before we get into our organizational meeting, our regular meeting, we do have one more presentation. Mr. Zeitz from Sun Common Solar is here. Where'd he go? There he is. I want to thank you for joining us this evening. I know you, we had a discussion, we had a meeting, a discussion on looking into some solar possibly for the town. And I asked him to come in this evening to kind of give us a quick presentation, some ideas, and see what was feasible. So I'd like to welcome you this evening. And
Thank you. And as far as the presentation, I opted not to do one because I wanted to make it a little more homey.
that's fine.
And it's very simple for the town, so I just thought that would be less cumbersome. But I'm certainly willing to send one to anybody who would like one. Just, I'll pass around a sheet if you like for emails. But yeah, thank you. So my name is Joe, and I'm with Sun Common. So Sun Common, I'd like to start with maybe providing a little information about who we are, because probably a lot of folks know of us, but maybe not by that name. And as far as the board is concerned here, I did bring some brochures, and I probably have a few extra for anybody. This is a commercial one. And I have some residential ones as well. So Sun Common, it has existed since about 2007. Hudson Solar was first started in 2003 out of Rhinebeck, and it was started with Hudson Valley Clean Energy. Then the name became Hudson Solar, and Sun Common and Hudson Solar worked on a project together in Rochester, and found there was a lot of like-mind type of company beliefs, so they did a merger in 2018. That brought together what Sun Common in Vermont did very, very well, which was to have the tools to do the estimates, the marketing, the back office, so to speak, which in Rhinebeck, Jeff Irish, who is an engineer, was an engineer at GE, was super good at technical, but as a lot of technical people are, they don't do a lot of marketing and other things. So it was a really good marriage on that side. So between the two companies, we've installed over 8,000 systems. We just finished and just got approval from Central Hudson to turn on a community solar array in Red Hook, which you may or may not have heard about. That's a 2 megawatt plus system, 6,000 panels. The town of Red Hook selected us out of, I don't know, dozens of other companies. They're doing 25% of their, or they took 25% of that array to power the town. They provided the land, we provided a investor, and then we do, part of what we do, we're a B corporation, a benefit corporation. So within our corporate structure, we have a triple bottom line. We have to make a profit, but we don't make that at the expense of people or the planet. So we are certified B Corp. There's about 900 in the country. And along with that comes a responsibility that says everybody should be able to go solar, whether it's a municipality or a non-profit or low income or moderate income, whether it's commercial or business. So the array over in Red Hook is a subscription. You have zero investment. You can subscribe to it, and you pay 10.5 cents a kilowatt hour as opposed to Central Hudson's, average 14 to 15 cents a kilowatt hour. So it's just immediate savings, and there's no investment. With municipalities, it's tough because there are no tax credits, there are no depreciation. There is an incentive from NYSERDA, which is an entity that everybody pays for when they get their utility bill. When you look at your utility bill and there's a delivery charge, and you see this sort of hieroglyphic thing that says SBC, Systems Benefit Charge, that's a tax to go solar. So we dip into that fund, and we use that for whether it's commercial, residential, or municipal. Anybody can get that money. If you don't go solar, you keep paying the tax. So it's pretty simple that way. So as far as the brochures are concerned, I think on the second page, there's a picture of our Rhinebeck office. And we are looking to hire another 25 people pretty much immediately. We've invested about $1 million just in the last year in the Rhinebeck area to upgrade and do other things. We're a net positive building there, so we don't use any energy. We have an excess. But so we're very community oriented is the bottom line on that. Let's see, what else can I say about this before we move on? I think that's probably sufficient for that. Any questions so far? Okay. So I spent some time with Ray, and then I looked over at the usage of the town. And, we had a good discussion. I put together a couple proposals, and I have 2 of those proposals. And what we thought we would do is we would take an approach at, what is the most cost-effective way to do it, is one approach. And the other approach was, okay, how do we handle this building, the garage, and the memorial house? So I think that's probably the one that may make the most sense long-term, but it also costs more money to do it that way too. So one of the things that's going to make it a little bit easier and more affordable is we had extra panels from that large array that we did. And slide that down there. So we wanted to make use of those, and with doing that, if we just did this particular building here, we could keep the cost to the town under $10,000, and it would take care of 100% of this building. So that's pretty incredible that way. And that would be paying prevailing wages, so we could certify the payroll and to meet the municipal standards. The panels are a Korean-owned company, designed in Germany and made in America at their brand new plant in Atlanta. It's all top-notch equipment, so it's a commercial panel. We would handle it as a residential install if it was just this building. That would keep it out of a lot of the extra permitting processes and things like that. Keeps the cost down. So the costs came in phenomenal. So that's option one, and probably going to be a little hard to go over some of these numbers, but I think the bottom line is about the 10 grand point. But what I did was, since we're going to handle it as a residential system, I took what our normal, residential price would be. I hope you don't mind me wearing my hat here. I've been cold all day. I've been outside, and it's just seemed to be a little chill on the bones here. So I took the same thing and treated it as a normal residential project, and the pricing was about $20,000, $19,101. So to come in under the 10 grand mark is pretty nice. Okay, and the next project is a 47 panel system, and what we would do is we would put it on the garage, and then we would intertie into this building.
How many panels did you say?
To do all 3 buildings, it would be 47. To do just this building, there would be 9.
24. Yeah, 'cause- huh?
So if we turn to this one, I think this would make more sense to go through the numbers. We have to do this one a little bit different. So we're still going to be using the same panels. So we get the cost effectiveness of having us bought 6,000 of these. So that's to the town's advantage. And then this would be an 18.56 kWs, and that's a DC size. Once we change it to AC, invert it, we're going to have about 18,194 kilowatt hours. So the kilowatt hours is the unit of measure that you would be charged for on your utility bill. So with this and with a town situation, you're really not. The investment is mostly a bill swap. Eventually, you're going to get to a place where it will pay off, but it doesn't harm at all. So this would be about 21 years before it would pay for itself with that purchase price. But compared to doing what you're doing now, 20 years ago, if you did this, you'd have a system that would be still producing 90% of the power. So these panels, being that they're commercial, in year 25, they're producing about 85% of what they would do on day one. So rather than have a stack of receipts that's for the taxpayers, then you have a system that's still producing 85% of what it was the first day.
What's the lifetime of those panels when they have to be replaced?
Yeah, they're a linear degradation, so they go down a little bit every year. We do a 10-year warranty. So, in the old days, I'm in the soon-to-be 60 and Wiser Club, used to buy a piece of stereo equipment or a radio, and the manufacturers would put them on a line, and they would burn them in, and then they would ship them to you. They don't do that anymore. They just ship them to you. So there's probably 1 out of 4,000 panels that won't work. So we'll find those in the first year or two, or the ones that would have an early life fail. The ones that get past that period of time, they'll last 100 years or more. They'll degrade that percentage point 0.5% every year. So in year 50, you would lose 30% versus the 15%, 25 years.
How do we know those 1 or 2 panels that don't work at all? They're just up on the roof, we're getting enough power to run the...
Perfect, yep. So with the one section I passed out with the solar panel, the next sheet behind that is the inverter system, and we would be using what we call power optimizers. So a power optimizer is going to have an optimizer which is going to optimize the voltage and the current to make power at the peak performance. Every panel will have one of those. Yep. So it's called in this case, it's a completely solid state system, very small, and that's going to take, underneath every panel there's going to be this optimizer. It's going to change the voltage and the current to optimize performance on that panel. It also has monitoring for every single panel. So there's a web page that will show you the performance of every single panel, and if there is a failure, it's going to show up. So we don't actively monitor the panels, but you could have a portal that you could look at once in a while, and if you see a red flag or something like that, you would know you have a problem with the panel. And then you would just call us, we would fix it for the first 10 years. So you know exactly. In the old days, you wouldn't know that. You wouldn't know what panel failed because it would be like the old Christmas tree lights. So we're well past that stage for our technology. And we use top-tier stuff.
So there's wireless communication to each one of these units?
It's not wireless. There is a communication line. So there can be some wireless communication from there to the internet, where you would go to display it, but there's wires to the panels.
Okay.
And the also nice thing about this particular inverter is it has arc fault detection. So if you're familiar with ground fault protection on your sink, you know, if there's any kind of current flow, it shuts everything down. There's any kind of arcing, even micro arcing, it'll shut the whole system down to 1 volt or less per module. So for safety reasons, it's phenomenal. If there's, you know, God forbid a fire here, the firefighters can hit the DC disconnect and there's no lethal voltage. If you have a string inverter or solar system, a lot of the firefighters, they're volunteer, and they're gonna have to go home at the end of the day if they see a solar system on fire and they don't know what it is, and they don't know how to do it, or they see it's a string inverter. Why would you go up on the roof? It's 300 volts DC. It's lethal voltage way over. So this will take it down to, you know, very safe levels quickly, just like that.
When you say there's a wire, what does the wire do?
Well, there's several with this communication line. So there's going to be wires that will optimize the voltage and current for each module. So that's individual, and then there's going to be communication lines so that the voltage can be disconnected. So we'll know what it is. So the monitoring lines are there, but also, you know, lines to power down the system.
So it's just monitoring, basically. The wire is just a way to monitor the...
Yeah, yeah, and of course carry the power. So there's different sets of wires, because the power has to come off the panel to be able to be used. Yeah.
So just to give everybody just a quick idea, because the numbers weren't actually put out there, but just to do this building, rough numbers, $9,500, takes approximately 16, 17 years to pay off and start to see a profit. To do all 3 buildings, roughly $64,000, which would be roughly 21 years, I think you worked out,
Yep.
to see a net profit, and then we'd start accumulating a little bit of savings. So obviously it's a substantial cost for the 3 buildings, but the highway garage uses the most power since they're in there every day and they have a lot of equipment going on. Our 2 little buildings don't use a lot, so that's why the price jumps way up when we go to all 3 buildings.
And because of the, you know, having to go out to a bid process, we have to go through a different cost factor. Where if we come in at a lower number, where it can be done internally, we treat it as a residential. We can do it less expensive, you know, or more cost effective. Even so, this is priced extremely low for a prevailing wage job. You know, I've been doing solar for 8 years. It's hard to get a commercial company to come in and do an 18 kW. It's not even on their radar. You know, typically it's going to be 50 to 100K or above for small companies. And large companies won't even talk to you unless you got 50,000 feet because of the cost that they have to incur. Yes, sir.
We had a preliminary estimate that showed the cost to be $33,000. Now we get supposedly the final estimate of $64,000. Why is so much difference?
The original number we discussed, and I don't know if that was because we didn't take into account for the 3rd building,
Yeah, correct, yeah.
because you gave me a copy
Yeah.
of it, you know, that's why I gave the board.
Yeah, so,
We had two of them. One was for just this building and the other was for the...
yeah, one was for a 24 panel, one was for a 9, this is 47.
Yeah. It's less.
So the last conversation I had with Ray was, he said, let's do what all 3 would be for. So that you actually have 3 proposals.
Are the roofs strong enough to hold these panels on the historic buildings?
Yeah, the solar system adds about 3 to 5 pounds per square foot. If it was completely flat, it would be closer to the 5. It wouldn't be quite that much, probably closer to 4. On this pitch roof or the garage is fairly flat, so it's probably about 4 pounds per square foot. Well below what a layer of shingles would be. Yeah. And the other thing that we would do is once, you know, we would enter into the process of, you know, say we went to contract, we would send out a site evaluator to do it, and then we would do our engineering. We have to have it engineered stamped. So we're going to do a structural analysis on it and get it stamped by a PE so that there's no issue. If there's an issue, then we just don't build it. You know, we don't want to create a problem.
And is this assuming panels on both sides or just on?
Yeah, so the garage could actually have panels on both sides. The pitch is shallow enough where even a north facing with the components that we're looking at, we could do good power. Doesn't mean, you know, you don't need to. So we're going to take the side that faces southeast. This is actually near perfect because south is this way. So we would do one side if it was on just this. But there's no point in doing this and the other building. If we did all three, we would just put them on the garage, and we would do a intertie to this building. So we'd have those two buildings tied. The third building would be tied in through a accounting practice. So it's called remote net metering. And then similar to what they were talking about with putting solar on the lines and then feeding them down somewhere else, you get a credit on your bill. So it would be a monetized value that would go against that Memorial House building.
Just to also touch on the other conversation we had, I did ask about, we discussed about possibly putting a large solar array in the back of the parkland over here in the back 7 acres. Briefly had this discussion. Something just to try to get some information, see if it was feasible, what would be the benefit, the savings, and that's a completely different animal, I'm going to call it, because there's a lot more involved with that, which would be millions of dollars, not necessarily cost to the town if we were to do something similar to Red Hook, but it's a large investment, a very large project. The distance from the main 3-phase wire back to the area is quite substantial, which rough numbers, I think we threw out $100,000 just to put an underground line back to it.
Probably 3 times that number, 100,000 minimum.
Minimum.
Yeah.
Just to get the feed back to where the panels would be. To me, with all the restrictions we have with the DEC, with the brownfield cleanup, it just seems to be unrealistic for us to try to take on some kind of project like that, what we were discussing. So that's why I kind of asked them to focus on something we could do a little more feasible for us that would help us out, and that's why we're talking about the buildings and putting on the roof.
Yeah, we would jump all over the opportunity to do one if you had 3-phase power closer.
Yeah.
Because it would not only benefit the town, it would benefit the residents. We did the same thing with Red Hook. We opened it up strictly to Red Hook residents first. After a period of time, we figured they were, nobody else from Red Hook wanted to get on it. Then we opened it up to the general public in Central Hudson at large. So we sold that out, all 6,000 panels, in a matter of a few months. And so there's definitely a demand in the community for subscription or low-cost solar power. And yeah, we would have been happy to do that, but I don't think that's the right way to do it. Plus, it would be harder to get an investor to do with the return for their money.
Now, another question, just looking at these numbers, is this estimated annual production 18,194, estimated usage 18,200. So we're already using more than what we're going to produce, and as we go down 0.5% each year, it's going to get less and less.
Yeah, that's I added into this 18,200 to begin with.
Okay.
So I added extra to cover not only an extra 10%, but during that transition to cash for the third building, as nice as the transmission people are and as nice as the utility people are, they all want a piece of the pie, so they don't give you a 1-to-1. So you have to do actually a little bit more than what you need to get that. So I built in some extra here. And then I also tried to be conservative on the estimate for production. So when we come out to do our engineering, we're going to get actual production. We're going to have we have a device that will measure the amount of solar for the entire year, and then we can update these numbers if there's any requirement to do that. But I don't think they're going to very much from this number here.
And the 47 panels, that was just on one side?
Yes.
So, and if you did it on both sides, I mean, that roof just seems much more suitable for a solar installation as opposed to these structures that are very small. Wouldn't there be some cost savings, just inefficiencies from one system as opposed to three?
Well, yes, we wouldn't do 3 systems. We would do one system and tie in this building, that would be tied in, and the other one wouldn't be physically tied in. It would just be that accounting. If it was 3 separate systems, there's 3 separate permits, there's, it gets more costly to do that. And as far as efficiency, this is the most efficient roof for production. You get more per panel out of this roof than you do on that roof, but that roof is easier to install. And it's, from a solar installation point of view, it's cleaner because it's standing seam metal. It's the best roof you could do for solar. There's no penetrations. So I would choose that one over this one just because of that.
But if you did both sides, would it double the production or not quite?
Well, it wouldn't be quite double, but yes, it would pretty much double it.
So we could just do that and cover all.
You don't need to double it. You just, the one side will do all 3 buildings. The one side of this garage building.
Correct me if I'm wrong, are you asking if we added to that, we could
Right.
actually be on the positive side and maybe get an earning return if it's empty?
Right.
Is
Well, I
that-
just wonder why we wouldn't, what would it look like to do both sides of the garage as opposed to involving?
Yeah, it's
town hall?
not a money-making, even if you had a federal tax credit and even if you had depreciation, the utility will pay back at the end, or what they do with it, on a commercial, it's different than residential. So on a commercial, it would just add in dollars and it would sit there unused. You couldn't turn them into cash. In a residential, you could turn them into cash, but they're going to pay you only on the supply cost, not on the supply and delivery. So they may pay you 5 or 6 cents instead of the 15 you're paying. So it doesn't pay to do extra. You want to be as close to the 100% or 110%, and as you can. And the other thing too, Bob, that you're talking about the degradation every year. You would also assume that you're going to have some efficiencies over the next 25 years to kind of cover that 15% drop. Over the next 25 years. So. It could be simply changing to LED light bulbs. That would definitely, just doing that in here would probably drop off 20% of the bill.
Well, go ahead. You have a question?
Yeah, the other question I had is, with a $64,000 investment is quite a significant amount. And we talked last meeting a little bit about possibly applying for grants to cover some of it. Are you familiar with any areas that the municipality could apply for grants?
They do come available from time to time. I'm not aware of any right now. When there are, they're usually very good, but
Are these state grants or?
They would be state.
Independent grant? How about independent?
They would be state grants.
Okay.
So, but I haven't seen one for quite some time, like years. And the only other way to do it is if you had some benefactor who wanted to make an arrangement to buy the panels. They would take the tax credits and the depreciation, and then in return they do a donation and they get a tax credit for the donation. It would involve lawyers on part of that benefactor.
And that's the big difference here. We don't receive any tax credits, which considerably knocks it down
Right.
for homeowners to do it compared to us.
Correct. Yeah, a typical commercial payback is going to be about 6 years. A typical residential payback is going to be about 8 to 10, depending on if it's a ground mount or a roof mount. You're at 16 on the small side, which is not bad for having no tax credits or depreciation. And then it goes up to about 21 when you are paying closer to, again, this is still a subsidized system. I seriously doubt Suncommon is making a nickel off the smaller system at all. I think it's just Jeff wants to do it because it's the right thing to do. And I think on this size system, it's pretty minimal. He figures that, he could send 4 guys out and do the whole system in 2 days or less. So, again, more of a community service.
Okay, well, does anybody else have any questions? Because this was basically what we were looking for, the information, so we could, talk about it, think about it, see what we want to do, if we could look into some grants. But I'd like to, consider this, we'll have follow-up discussions on
Sure.
this, but I appreciate you bringing this in and going over it with us, gives us at least it gives us an idea of what we're looking at, if we want to consider this. I would like to see about possibly getting some grants, even some personal grants that may not be involved with the state. But we will follow up on this, and I'll be
Sure.
back in touch to you as soon as we can make a decision on what we'd like to do.
I see Mary's been looking at her smartphone, she's probably got some grants in mind here.
NYSERDA, we would have to go through the process to be a clean energy community. Applications for grant funding will be reviewed until 4 p.m. Eastern Time, September 30th, 2020. And if I could also ask a question? You mentioned that if you found somebody to pay for just the panels, what would that cost be? So we know what to ask people for.
Well, I'm not so sure we could break it down just by panels, but if you wanted to pay towards the 10,000, that's just gonna help that much out of for the town. I don't know what's involved to get a charitable contribution, if there is such a thing, since you're not a not-for-profit. But, I don't know how to do that. But if you wanted to have a fundraiser for the solar system, yeah, by all means. Okay, and I would also say too, if there's a sweet spot, you don't have to do 100% to make it worthwhile, and also shows the community that you're going in the right direction for climate change and those types of things. So you could have any size. So I would say if it turns out to be 30 panels instead of 47, or by all means pursue that too. Okay. And
Okay, well, anybody else have any quick questions for solar? No? We will have follow-up discussion on this, look into this a little farther, see what else we can come up with, and then I will certainly be in touch with you when we make any decisions or if we have any other follow-up questions.
Thank you.
All right? Thank you.
any residents that would like a brochure? Okay.
I'd like to have one.
Okay. I'm gonna. What about businesses first? Anybody have a business? They're a little bit different on these.
Okay. You good?
I will have to change.
You want to do now or you want to wait?
All
right,
That's what I
go ahead.
was thinking. You can give me a minute?
All right, we will get started with the organizational meeting in a few minutes. Is Mary ready? And we'll follow up with our
It's got as
regular
technical
meeting.
as I get.
Thank you again for coming in this evening, I appreciate it.
pleasure. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks for the interest. And if there's any questions that come up, you have my card, so please just send me an email.
Okay, absolutely. Okay,
It looks good.
it's good, you're ready?
Yes, that's good.
All right, we're going to get started with our 2020 organization meeting. This is a list of resolutions that we go through every year. Most of it's just renewing and reappointing positions. That being said, we'll start out with, follow along with our old organizational meetings if you want. That way we can read through each one of them. Starting with resolution number 1, 2020, to set the time and date for our regular town board meeting, which will continue to be the first Monday of every month at 7 p.m. In case Monday's a holiday, cancellation due to inclement weather, it will be scheduled to be the following day, which is Tuesday.
So, second.
All in favor?
Chris?
Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 2, set the town board meeting rules and regulations. Will be
continue this be the same we have set up. Number 1, call meeting order, 2, salute to the flag, acceptance of the minutes of the previous meetings, written communications to town board, town clerk report, mail review, committee reports and updates, old business, new business, supervisor report, pay abstracts, and public comment communications, and then adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Resolution 3, 2020, naming official newspaper, be the Register Star.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
I haven't
Opposed?
had too good a luck with registered
Carried.
recently.
I don't think too many people have. We don't have a lot of options.
At least once a week I go to Hudson to get a replacement paper that didn't come.
It's been an issue.
Huh?
It's been an issue. Resolution number 4, 2020, naming the bank for deposits, supervisor, Bank of Greene County. Town clerk has changed to the Bank of Greene County. Tax collector is the Bank of Greene County. Judge Christensen and Judge Banks both have changed to Bank of Greene County.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 5, authorizing the town supervisor to appoint bookkeeper pursuant to section 29 of town law, necessary for proper conduct of town affairs, proper conduct of town affairs.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 6, 2020, authorize town supervisor to temporarily invest idle monies in accordance with town investment policy, general municipal law, section 11.
So moved.
Second?
I'd like to comment on that as well. Just
All in favor?
public,
Opposed?
yes.
Carried.
Ray's done very, very well with that this year. We're getting quite a higher interest rate than we had gotten in past years. So, thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Ray.
Absolutely. Yeah, our interest went from around $4,000 to close to $14,000, which, if you can believe, it's a huge difference. So, yes, thank you. Resolution number 7 of 2020, appoint official dog shelters. Pine Plain Veterinary Hospital, Associated PC, and Round Top is the other one. Did we find out if they were still doing it?
We don't.
So let's appoint
No.
them, and if they don't, we'll take it back off. But both of those, Round Top Animal Hospital.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 8, 2020, appoint the official dog control officer at the budgeted amount, Desiree Weber.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 9, authorize the town justice to hire a court stenographer when necessary for proper records of testimony within the limit of the 2020 budget.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Give it to Lindsay.
Opposed? Carried.
Aye.
Resolution 10, appoint town historian. Dawn's not here, but we're reappointing Dawn.
So moved.
Dawn Bronson.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 11, appoint code enforcement officer Sam Harkins at the budgeted amount. Deputy code enforcement officer at $100 per month if needed, appointed by the code enforcement officer.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 12, 2020, appoint the town attorney for planning, zoning, assessor within 2020 budget limits. Freeman Howard PC, Hudson, New York.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 13, appoint town engineer, CPL, Clark Patterson Lee.
So moved. Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Who was that? I'm sorry, who was the second on that one?
I did.
You did the
I'll
second?
take the second. Bob,
You
we'll get
did that,
Bob to-
okay.
We did it together.
I don't think
Okay.
anybody will argue.
Sorry.
Resolution number 14, 2020, designate the official representatives to Association of Towns annual meetings, Supervisor Stats and Councilman Gildersleeve.
So moved.
Second.
Second?
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Resolution 15, 2020, establish 58 cents per mile rate for official town travel as per federal guidelines.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution 16, authorize town supervisors to sign 2020 state and local youth contracts.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 17, 2020, appoint registrar of vital statistics. That always gets me. Mary Helen Shannon.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution 18, 2020, reappoint Lawrence Solko, Chairman of the Planning Board, and reappoint Clayton Andrews as Deputy Chairman.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution 19 of 2020, reappoint Desiree Weber, the Planning Board Secretary.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 20, reappoint James Hemmerwright III, Chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and appoint Luke Cabarrus, Deputy Chairman.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution 21, appoint Desiree Weber, the Zoning Board Secretary.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution 22, Town Clerk's appointment for Deputy Clerk and Deputy Register of Vital Statistics, Tracy Vaughn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution 23, Town Highway Superintendent's appointment of Deputy Highway Superintendent, Adam Lawyer.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Is that,
Carried.
you second that?
Yeah.
I can't hear you.
Resolution 24, 2020, Town Supervisor's appointment of Deputy Supervisor, Robert Desmond, for the term January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Resolution 25, Town Supervisor's appointment for Budget Officer and stats.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution 26, 2019, Town Supervisor's appointments for Town Bookkeeper, Brian Fitzgerald, CPA, PC.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution 27, 2020, Town Board Committees. The following committees and changes as follows. The Auditing Committee, all Town Board members. Building and Grounds, Chair Robert Desmond, Co-Chair Raymond Stats. Cable TV, we're going to amend that to say Cable TV and Internet Networking. Is that right, Chris?
Yeah, I was thinking along those lines.
All right, we'll do that.
Sounds good. I think.
Chris Gildersleeve's chair, and Lindsay Lusher-Shute as co-chair.
So moved.
Yeah, I'm gonna go through all of them. Grants, chair, Dawn Bronson, co-chair, Lindsay Lusher-Shute. Highway, chair, Bob Desmond, co-chair, Raymond Stats. Insurance, all town board members. Legal, Raymond Stats. Planning and Zoning, Board of Assessment Review, chair, Bob Desmond, co-chair, Lindsay Lusher-Shute. Recreation and Community Events, Chris Gildersleeve, Dawn Bronson. Village Green Committee, liaison to Town Board, still Tammy Conley. School liaison, Chris Gildersleeve, Lindsay Lusher-Shute, sorry. Historic Committee, Dawn Bronson, Lindsay Lusher-Shute. And the Park Use Committee, or Park Use, Bob Desmond, and Lindsay Lusher-Shute.
Is that it?
That's it.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution 28, appoint Chris Gildersleeve as the webmaster for the town of Claremont.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Resolution 29, 2020, reappoint representatives to the Columbia County Office of the Aging for the term of January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020, Clayton Andrews.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution 30, to reappoint members of the Board of Ethics to the term of January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. Mary Howard, Susan Reifenberg, Mary Helen Shannon, Ray Towsey.
So moved.
No chance to get off.
Second.
All in favor?
Was there,
Chris?
was there a vacancy on that? Do
No.
we want to address that or
There's none of it.
no? Okay.
Does it have to be 5?
No, we had 3. Remember, we
Yeah,
made
we
it
raised it
4.
to 4.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
had to have someone, okay.
From the town board had to be on there. The elected official had to be
Right,
on there. It was
okay.
a board one.
That's how I got there.
Yeah, that's how you got on there. All right.
Okay.
Resolution 31, 2020, reappoint Hank Hemmelwright to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a 5-year term, January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2024.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution 32, 2020, reappoint Nathan Hempel to the Planning Board for a 7-year term, January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2026.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution 33, accept 2020 salary stated in the 2020 budget as follows. I'm going to run through them all. There's 5 or 6 changes. Supervisor, 5,500, no change, monthly payroll. Council persons, 4 at 2,500. $2,500 yearly, which is monthly payroll. Town justices was a slight increase to $5,600 on a monthly payroll for each one. Town clerk is a slight increase to $7,000 on a monthly payroll. The town tax collector, slight increase to $4,600 on a monthly payroll. Highway superintendent, a slight increase to $51,544 on a bi-weekly payroll. The assessor, no change, $15,270 per year on a monthly payroll. The court clerk, small increase, $375 per month on a monthly payroll. Code enforcement officer was increased to $11,000, which is a monthly payroll. Deputy code enforcement officer, $100 a month if needed on a monthly payroll. Town custodian, small increase to $1,800 a year on a monthly payroll. Assessment review board meetings, $100 per day by voucher. Additional time at minimum wage by voucher. Secretary to the bar at minimum wage per hour by voucher. Zoning chairman, $1,000 a year on a yearly payroll. The planning chairperson, $1,000 a year on a yearly payroll. The zoning co-chair person, $800 a year on a yearly payroll. The planning co-chairperson, $800 a year on a yearly payroll. All zoning members, $800 a year on a yearly payroll. Planning board members, all $800 a year, yearly payroll. Zoning secretary, $1,000 a year on a yearly payroll. Planning secretary, $1,000 a year on a yearly payroll. And trial juror at minimum wage by voucher, if necessary. And last but not least, the dog control officer at $360 a month on a monthly payroll.
So moved?
Oh, hold on. This is all part of the same one.
Oh.
Highway department wages now, full-time hourly wage moves up to $20.36 per hour, which is a bi-weekly payroll. The part-time winter and summer help will be increased slightly to $12.75 per hour on a bi-weekly payroll. And the deputy highway superintendent receives $1,000 a year, which is paid half in June, half in December. That's it. These are all budgeted amounts that we passed in our budget for 2020.
So moved.
All second?
Second.
So Chris made the motion?
I'll forward
Seconded?
it to Bob.
You gotta speak up because I'm not hearing you.
I did it twice.
All right,
okay.
it's Chris
Chris,
I'll forward
and
it.
Bob.
all
Do
in
it that
favor?
way.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 34, is Town of Claremont's fee schedule for the building department fees and zoning and planning fees. This has not been changed, and we will be looking at that,
The 18th.
yeah, when we review our books on the 18th. Motion?
So moved?
Second?
Chris and Bob.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution 35, 2020, the Town of Claremont's official undertaking of municipal officers. That's something we have to do every year. Mary?
Yes, that's for what
For
our
the insurance.
insurance company has covering us in case we were to steal any money. Tax collector, supervisor, and myself. That's what it is.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 36, agreement between the Town of Claremont Town Board with the Canaan Fellowship for the use of the Claremont Community House for the period of January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020, according to the terms and conditions of the lease.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution 37, agreement between the Claremont Town Board and Pine Plains Veterinary Associates to act as kennels for the town of Claremont for the period of January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
we may need to review these, right? Again,
Well, they've sent a new contract, so apparently they're still, yeah, Mary received it already.
okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution 38, agreement between the Claremont Town Board and Round Top Animal Hospital to act as kennel for the town for the period of January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. That one we may have to revisit, but for now.
Okay. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Resolution number 30, that was the one we already did, the fees. Is that it? That's
This
it?
is, yeah, the review of the, this part. You
Okay.
have
We
that,
will
right?
be, yes, all right. We will be meeting on January 18th, 10 PM, to review all the policies and audit.
Late night. 10 a.m.
10 a.m., what did I
Yeah.
say?
PM.
PM, no, yeah, no, 10 a.m. To review all the policies and procedures and audit the clerk, myself, the judges, which we do every year.
Tax collector.
Tax collector as well. So, other than that, I believe that concludes our organizational meeting.
And it's just, you gotta have a motion on that.
We have to have a
Setting
motion.
that time and place.
For
Yes.
setting it, I had that in the other regular meeting, but let's have a
Okay.
motion to set that for January 18th at 10 a.m.
So moved.
Second?
Check my calendar. I'm not
Bob
gonna make a
and,
motion on that yet.
Bob and Chris, was it again?
No,
No?
No.
No?
January 18th,
Yeah.
18th.
Is it Lindsay then?
I
Who made the
will not
second?
be able to be here.
You can't be here.
Not on the 18th.
Well, the only other option would be the 11th, which would be this Saturday.
If we could get everybody.
That's my birthday.
Oh,
This
see, well, mine's the
Saturday?
18th, so I didn't want to do it either.
I can't do the 11th,
Okay.
more because it's also my daughter's birthday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting, very nice. Well, we have to make sure we have a quorum, because I don't know how Dawn will be, progressing, if she'll be available as well, so, can you make the 18th, Lindsay?
Yes, I can do the 18th. If it's possible to have it later, that would be ideal, but if 10 is the time, that's fine.
I was just
Is
gonna
that-
say if we could do it earlier.
Oh, early. Well,
Only because we have to
actually,
schedule the
either-
tax collector, the judges, everybody to come in, and they come in
Right.
especially for that meeting.
Right.
Okay, so between the two of us,
What-
one of us,
Earlier,
well, I mean, that takes us a while.
I mean, we could do 9, I mean, we could do the important stuff right up first. I don't know, is that enough time?
I'll say if Lindsay can do it later and it works, I would go with her over me. Because my time is gonna be limited and I don't wanna cater to me and then not be able to have to leave early or something, so.
Well, I mean, if Dawn can make it, it's fine, we can get started. I mean, if she makes it, I don't know if she can make it, but we could certainly start.
9 o'clock, tax collector's here at 9.
So I'm gonna pull away from the 18th
Okay.
and say I'm not gonna be able to make it, so, unless we do it at night.
and it has to happen by the 20th, right?
We have,
Is the-
well, we're
is
supposed to,
the
yes,
deadline.
we're supposed to do it before the 20th. Well, we can tentatively set it for the 18th at 10, and if it doesn't work out, we'll find out more once we get closer. I mean, you can make it later, you said? Better?
Yeah, I can, let's just set it for that time. Yeah, and I will confirm.
If it happens to be later, a little bit later, I mean, before noon time, I mean, we could start, we could also finish, I mean, there's ways to work around it, but, all right, so go.
Yeah, let's just say 10 a.m., that's fine.
Okay
So I
then.
need
So
a second.
we need a second on that.
I will give the second.
Second. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right.
Are we done with that?
All right, now we're gonna move right into our regular meeting. We really don't have a ton left to discuss here. We went through the presentations already. But we do have to approve the prior town board minutes.
And we have
So we'll,
December 3rd and December 30th.
two sets.
Did I ever give you the 30th?
The year end.
I never gave them, so I guess we'll have to do them.
So we'll do them after, but we'll do the first set, the
February.
regular December 3rd meeting.
I'm not, you gave me a copy.
Yes, they got those. I just didn't send out the, I never did send it for the 30th. I did them.
Yeah,
The year end, the year
Yeah,
end.
the year
Yeah.
end.
We'll do them
That
after.
was very short, wasn't it? In
One
fact,
page.
You can probably read it tonight. Anyway, so moved. Here.
Okay, Bob.
All right, we're moving to 30th, the third meeting.
And it has to be
Chris
Chris
got a second
because Lindsay
Lindsay
can't.
wasn't here.
I'm missing which,
The December 3rd regular town board meeting minutes. Did you have any?
oh, yes.
Oh, I can't.
Second for you.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
I'm still updating calendars.
Carried. We will approve the other minutes at the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay, now let's get back to normal, back to clerk report.
Sure.
All right.
Okay, Town Clerk's Report for December 2019. Zoning Board of Appeals, application, $100. Planning Board, application for a boundary line change, $100. Dog licenses, $18. Building permits, $1,930. Certificates of occupancy, $525. God bless you. Town clerk fees, bank interest, 11 cents. Solid waste, $1.50. Decals for hunting licenses, $6.77. Vital statistics, certified copies, $60. Marriage license, $17.50. Other permits, $25. FOIL copies, $17.25. Total for the general fund, $2,801.13. Trust and agency for the escrow account for a special permit with the ZBA, $250. Paid to New York State Department of Health for marriage license, $22.50. Paid to Columbia County Solid Waste, $18.50. Paid to New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets, $6 for dog licenses. And paid to New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, $420.23. So the total for December, $3,518.36.
Okay, thank you, Mary.
Okay.
Accept your report. Do we have any mail? Mail review?
No, I
Nothing
have
for the new
no
year?
mail.
Awesome. All right,
No, None.
very good. Correspondence for the web committee? Does anybody have any complaints to hit Chris with yet? We have our new website up and running. Evan's here to join us tonight.
To take credit for that.
Thank you very much for getting that put together. Did you have anything you wanted to throw in on that, or?
I don't think so. If people test it and notice something, please let us know.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you getting that finalized up and taking care of that, so excellent. All right, committee reports. I can't imagine there's going to be much reports going on since we met last week, but let's throw it out there, Bob.
No, there's not much. Just one thing I would like to do again, as we often do, is compliment the highway department on the two storms that we had recently. One of them had a lot of snow and the other wasn't much, but what was there was slippery, and I know those guys were out real early that morning.
Yes, they were.
Jimmy must have been out very early because he said he called those guys in around 5 or 5:30 after he had checked some of the roads.
Yeah, that was an icy mess, so I know we were out 3 or 4 times on that at least, yeah.
Yes.
So, okay.
So they continue to do a good job for us.
All right, thank you, Bob. Lindsay? Anything you come up with the last few days? No?
No.
All right.
Although, is there a park committee report?
I was gonna ask for that when we get down a little further.
When we get there.
Yeah, that's fine. I didn't put it on here, but I always usually ask you, and I'm trying to remember. All right, Chris?
No.
No, Dawn's not here. Okay. Old business. Really, the only thing,
Park committee?
park committee, we'll get to that. New
Oh,
business.
yeah, that's
new
right.
business,
Okay.
okay.
All right.
Old business, just the solar was what we talked about. We had a little presentation tonight, give us some ideas. We're certainly going to look into it, have some follow-up discussions on that and see if it's feasible, if it makes sense for us to follow up with that. But we will talk about this probably when we do our review, go over that, try to look into some grants, talk to Dawn when she comes back about it as well. But we will be looking to follow up on that. Just 2019 highlights. I just wanted to, because we don't really have a whole lot to discuss on business tonight, just to recap real quickly some of what I call the highlights this past year. You know, we went through a period where we had that horrible storm that went through. We ended up actually doing some building upgrades, repairs, not upgrades, but we ended up getting a new roof on our back of our community building. The roof was replaced on our storage building in the back, and part of the town hall has had a new paint job along with the back of the community house. That was all covered by our insurance company for the damage that was done, which I don't want to call it a highlight, but I think that's great for us because it didn't cost us anything to get this improvement. We purchased a new truck this past year that we budgeted for. We had the funds budgeted in the budget for the highway department. It was a small truck, but it was still $80-some thousand. We continue to budget and store money away in our equipment fund on a regular basis, so we have money available when we need to purchase these vehicles. We have what we call the reserve for the equipment fund. Every year we we designate and allocate money to that fund to keep the balance high enough for when we need to purchase something. We know never have to go out to bond. I think that's very important. I think that is a highlight because we have zero debt for the town. Right now we have approximately $160,000 in that fund that we were able to leave funds in there that we were supposed to take out this year for that other truck because of our revenues being so good. So we have enough in there after this year's donation coming up in 2020 to almost fund a brand new 6-wheel dump truck, which is $210,000. So we're probably looking at that expenditure in a couple, maybe 2 to 3 years if everything stays on track.
Yeah,
so we'll have.
He's got another good 2 years.
So we'll have more than enough to buy that outright with no debt, which I think is great. A lot of towns can't do that. A lot of towns prefer to bond things. I prefer to have zero debt, and we've been able to do that. And a lot of that has to do with conservative spending on the board, and also the increased revenues coming in from all ends, the interest, sales tax is the biggest one for us, obviously, from the county. That's why I always like to say it every time, anybody that can spend your money locally, if it's an option, please do, because some of that money does come back to the town, and it also goes to the county tax dollars also. So that certainly helps offset what we have to spend. Increase in our capital reserve every year. This year, I think we budgeted $45,000 to go into it. So we are ahead of the game as far as I'm concerned, and I'd like to stay that way because unexpected expenditures come up anytime you're not ready for it, and we certainly, at least we have the money set aside. Our fund balance continues to maintain. We've actually are increasing our fund balance with 2019's budget. We actually made up very well with our revenues coming in well over predictions. It's been great sales tax revenue. By the time it's all said and done, which we won't know until next month when we receive the last sales tax check, we will probably profit, I won't say profit, we'll be putting in our fund balance roughly $80,000 for the general fund, which is phenomenal. We've been using some of that over the past few years just to balance the budget, but the last couple, like I said, 3 or 4 years ago, we were using quite a bit of it. The last couple of years, it's just starting to even out, and now we're actually starting to put a little bit back in. So that's great news for when we run into a lack of revenues, or things slouch down a little bit, slack off. We will have that money available to maintain the budget as we have been for the past at least 10 years, I'm going to say. I know it's over 10 years that we have not increased the tax rate in Claremont, and that's almost unheard of. We haven't, the acceptable amount that the governor's allowed is what, 1.9%, 2%. The county raises it every year. We have not seen the necessity, and we do not feel that it's necessary to actually raise the taxes when we have a fund balance available, we have the revenues coming in the way they are. So
yeah, rates have varied somewhat, but the amount we expended has stayed the same.
It's stayed the same for 10 years. So that's, to me, no debt, no tax increase in 10 years. I don't know how much better you can do, but I think we're right on track for maintaining a good budget this year, and hopefully build the fund balance a little more for the rainy day we might encounter. So that being said, that's about all I have. New business, we just set the audit date and policy, or for policy review. We'll do it on the 18th at 10 a.m. And I think that's about it for this meeting. I'm going to ask the park committee if we have any updates. Thank you, Mary.
The next park meeting will be this Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. here. It should be our final meeting before we present to the town board at the February meeting our recommendations. It's turned into a very large document that we can print out if you like, or we can keep it as an electronic copy. It's up to you folks if you want me to do a whole lot of color copying. How many copies would you like?
Yeah, no, I mean, we could do the electronic version. You're going to have to print one copy, I know.
Yes.
But I think the rest of us could review electronic copies much easier.
Very good.
Fine. And February meeting?
February meeting, we should be ready to present.
So we'll put that on the agenda for
15, 20 minutes?
20 minutes, half an hour.
Tops. We'll go.
Okay.
It would be nice to have a couple of copies of it, and also a larger printout of some of the plans that Amy has been working on.
I'll talk with her, see if...
Which I think she can help.
Yeah. And we're on track. Keeping it going. And as soon as we present, I'm done.
Stop it.
I am.
Okay. All right.
Because it was an ad hoc committee just for this.
Okay.
So if the town board chooses to continue the committee, that's up to you.
Okay.
Just,
And
it's
we're very
sunsetting.
grateful for your work, Mary. You've done a lot of this.
Absolutely.
right.
I don't think we're going to let you go, but we'll entertain it for now.
I think with the 2019 highlights, the park and the park committee and the volunteers are certainly worth mentioning as well.
Yes.
Absolutely, you're right. You know what? I actually had that on my list, but I skipped right over it. But yes, to thank everybody for their involvement. Yes, so thank you, Chris. Because look where we've come, how far we've come with that, the involvement of the volunteers, and it wouldn't have come to fruition without everybody chipping in and helping out on it. So yes, thank you very much for everybody that's been involved and part of it. So thank you. And we will look forward to the presentation in February. Okay. Supervisor report. I really don't have a whole lot to go over. That's fine. Bob said it all for the highway department. Certainly appreciate everything they've done for keeping the road safe so far. We had a pretty nasty start to the year, December to the season, but luckily it's been fairly mild, and looks like it's going to continue to be mild for a little while, so hopefully we get through part of January, and that helps save on our budget as well, so it's been pretty good. I guess we'll move on to pay abstracts.
Motion that we pay general abstract number 1, vouchers 1 through 13, in the amount of $19,444.70.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I'll make a motion to pay highway, general abstracts highway number 1, vouchers 1 and 2, for a total of $3,728.81.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Move to pay trust and agency abstract number 1 and voucher number 1 in the amount of $196.50.
Second?
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, moving on to public comment. Do you have any public comment, complaints?
a long meeting, what's the public
Suggestions?
is.
Everybody fall asleep? Longest meeting we've had in forever. If there's no public comment, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
I got them both.
Opposed? Carried.
And I
Thank you.
heard all three this time.